Shep here from Mute Production. Today I'm very excited to share with you all my latest preset pack for Serum. The pack contains 213 patches, all aimed at the darker end of the psychedelic spectrum, but also suitable for any type of psychedelic dance music that you might like to make. So the pack contains kicks, basses, effects, drums, leads, and even some bonus sounds. There's also some custom noise files and wavetables in there for you as well. So, without further ado,
let's start by having a look at the kick drums. We've got multiple different types of kick, and each different type of kick has a couple of variations. For instance, CAD kick 1, 2 and 3, or Lunar kick 1 and 2. So let's just have a listen to these and see what they're like on the oscilloscope. Let's make a full velocity on the MIDI note. I like this one the most. So you can play these kicks in any pitch you want. I've got this on G at the moment, but we could take it down to any pitch you want, and the tail will be in the same pitch as the note you've played. So let's go with G. Let's find ourselves a bass line to go with it. So there's quite a lot of different basses, so I'm just going to pick one at random. Let's go with this one. Okay, let's just draw in some notes. And let's make the last two notes full velocity and the first note lowest velocity. And let's make these notes a little bit shorter. And let's take them down an octave. Something like that. That should do the job. So we can use our macros over here to decide how our bass is going to sound. So first we've got this phase macro, which decides how the attack, the transient, is going to sound. So we can have a more muted attack, but I prefer a bit more clicky. Then this open macro, you can control how open the sound is by increasing the amount or decreasing the amount of decay on the filter envelope. I like it about there. Then we've got the cutoff, which just allows us to tweak the cutoff of the filter. So we can have a sort of darker sound or a lighter sound. And then we've got this sub cleaner macro. So this is really quite a useful macro. What it does, whilst it's at 0, it does nothing, but when it's at halfway, it makes the last part of the bass notes have less sub bass in. So if you watch the oscilloscope, you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is really quite useful for getting your low end to be a little bit more dynamic if you like that kind of sound in your subs. And it saves doing it later on with some sort of plugin. So you can also take sub away from the beginning of the note as well. If we put this sub cleaner all the way up to 100, you can kind of clean up your transient area, which isn't always necessary, but sometimes it can be pretty useful, especially for the note that is sort of living with the tail of the kick. So that sounds good to me. Now let's go back to our kick and mold it the way we like it. Actually, firstly, let's put a velocity device on our bass. And because we made our first bass note as low velocity as we could put it, now we can use this out low to control the groove of our bass line. I like it about there. So now let's go over to our kick. And body type macro, it controls the type of body that the kick has. So let's play with that. And we've got a tail macro, so this controls what shape the tail is. So you can either have that type of thing, or you can have sort of sausage type shape. So let's see what sounds best. I like it like that, but let's make our kick slightly shorter. That seems about right to me. Then we can control our transient to have a darker or lighter transient. I like it about there. And then finally we've got the sweep style. So this controls how the sweep happens from high to low. So this is probably the most drastic macro out of all of them for the kicks. As you can hear, you get sort of more laser type kick if you have it up all the way, and if you turn it down you get more of a sort of stubby kick. I like it halfway. Okay, so now what we can do is we can align the phase of our kick to our bass. So let's mute the kick for now. Play with the phase. Okay, that looks about right to me, but the problem is that we've got a build up in sub bass now on the second 16th. So to avoid this issue, we can put a velocity on our kick, and because we set our kick to Full velocity, we can use this out high knob on our velocity device to control how loud our tail is. So if we just set it to nothing, set it to 1, you get a very, very quiet tail, and we can just bring it up until we've got sort of good volume tail. So I'll go with something like that. That sounds good to me. It's minor, but it's very useful in some situations, especially if you have louder first bass notes. Alright, so that's the kick and bass. We're just going to have a look at some of my favourite ones, because otherwise we'll be here forever if we go through them all. So this one's called One Man Band. I really like this one. The point of it is not to put it straight in your tracks. The whole point of it is so that rather than working on kick and bass for however long and then suddenly losing inspiration because you've been listening to kick and bass for hours on end, you can just play around with this to get your ideas down. So we've got a groove control. We can decide whether to play octaves or not. And if we go halfway, we get a different rhythm. We have an offbeat macro, so we can choose whether to have it rolling or offbeat. And then we've got drums. And one of my personal favourite presets in this pack is called Gloopy Velo. If we just put a arpeggiator and a total random velocity on it, set it to 16ths, and let's use an LFO to control the gate. And let's set it to random. And let's just have a play with the cutoff as we go. Pretty cool one. Another one I really like, it's called BubbleSweep. This one, we've got the two main macros are cutoff and laser. So if we just get each of those parameters, get a couple more LFOs, map those to these parameters. Some really, really nice stuff coming out of that one. So now let's take a look at another one. This one's called LightClock. Sounds somewhat similar to the Axis Virus sundial wavetable. Now we've got my special FM lead section. So you'll notice that there's 12 sections, one for each note, and inside each one, seemingly just the same stuff over and over and over again. But the deal is with this stuff is that if we go into one of them, let's choose stereotypical G. So no matter what key you press on your keyboard, it's always going to play the note that is in the name. So this is G, so every single note you press are all going to be G, no matter what. So you can play any note, or you can use pitch bend, and it will always be in key, as long as you've chosen the right note for your track. So because it's every note plays the same note, just different texture or different timbre, you can use things like an arpeggiator followed by a random. So let's use a random, set it to bidirectional, and 100% chance. And we could put something like a delay on there to make it a bit more interesting. Get some pretty interesting textures out of these FM lead things. We can also change the spectral content. If we play with this wavetable position, we've got sine through to saw. I quite like the sine ones. Quite bubbly. Got some other pretty strange patches in here. Particularly this hands stab. If you have the hands knob all the way down, makes a weird stab thing, but if we go about halfway on the hands knob, you start to get this brushed metal type sound. And if we drag it all the way up, so yeah, you can get some really interesting stuff out of that. There's this one called hard stab, which is quite similar, well, quite a sort of stereotypical sound heard in psytrance. Again, we can just put this random note on, and it's always going to play G. Okay, so that's the FM leads. And finally, we've got the atmospheres. So we go into the Atmos. My favourite one's this One Too Many. That can make some really, really nice ambience. And this one called The Underbelly is also pretty cool. So there we are, preview of the pack. If you're interested in buying it, you can find it on my Gumroad, which is in the link beneath, or it's available from the 9th of October on the Collective Intelligence web store. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.